Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. My name is Callum and I've never been great at grand romantic gestures, but I've always been good at showing up for the people I love. Especially for my girlfriend, Avery. We'd been together for 2 years, and this year, our anniversary fell on a Friday. A small blessing after a long, exhausting week. I booked us a reservation at a quiet little place downtown, the kind of restaurant where the lights are low, the music is soft, and you can actually hear the person sitting across from you. Felt fitting. Everything about Avery and me had always been quiet and gentle, or so I believed. The first sign something was off came 3 days before our anniversary, when she casually mentioned that she'd already made dinner plans. She said it the way someone mentions they bought toothpaste. No emotion, no curiosity, no excitement. I had paused. You made plans? For Friday, yeah? She said, scrolling on her phone. I figured we'd just do something simple this year. I invited Rowan too. You don't mind, right? I had blinked at her, genuinely confused. Rowan? Your best friend Rowan. She nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, he said he's free. It'll be fun. I didn't argue. I should have, maybe, but I didn't. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Rowan had been her closest friend since college. I convinced myself I was being dramatic. Besides, Avery loved to tell me I overthought things, and I'd been trying to get better at not doing exactly that. But something about that conversation sat uncomfortably in my stomach, the way cold soup does. Heavy, unpleasant, refusing to settle. When Friday came, I dressed a bit nicer than usual. Not too fancy, but enough that I looked like a man celebrating something. When Avery walked out of her room, she wore a soft blue dress that I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful, effortlessly so. But for the first time, I noticed something else. She'd put in a level of effort she hadn't put in for me in months. We arrived early. The restaurant had velvet-lined booths and tables lit by candles flickering inside frosted glass holders. We were led to a 3-seater table. I hesitated before sitting, but Avery seemed perfectly comfortable, scanning the menu as if this was perfectly normal. Then Rowan walked in. Rowan wasn't a bad-looking guy, tall, messy blonde hair, casual in a way that looked intentional. He had that sort of energy people mistake for confidence. When he saw us, he grinned and walked over, arms wide open. "Avies," he said, leaning in and hugging her like they hadn't seen each other in years. Then he turned to me. "Hey, Cal." Only 3 people ever called me that, and he wasn't one of them. He sat right next to Avery, shoulder brushing hers. She didn't move away. She didn't seem to notice. But I did. I noticed everything. When the waiter came to take our order, Rowan stretched like he owned the place, draped an arm along the back of the booth behind Avery, and asked, "What do you recommend here, man? We're celebrating something special tonight." Not she, not they. I could feel the back of my neck grow warm. Before Avery or I said a word, Rowan ordered the most expensive thing on the menu. A dry-aged steak that cost more than my weekly groceries. And he did it casually, like it was nothing. Avery laughed, nudging him. "You and your fancy tastes." He winked. "Only for special occasions." It was in that moment I realized something quietly devastating. They had inside jokes I wasn't a part of, a rhythm I didn't belong to, a comfort that had nothing to do with friendship, and everything to do with familiarity built in places I wasn't invited to stand. The conversation throughout dinner was lopsided. Every time I tried to speak, Rowan cut in. Every time I asked Avery something, she redirected to Rowan. When I tried to tell a story, Rowan corrected details that he shouldn't have known, but somehow did. At one point, Rowan reached out to wipe a smudge of sauce from the corner of Avery's mouth. She didn't flinch. She didn't blush. She didn't pull away. She smiled. Something in my chest tightened. Not jealousy, but recognition. Recognition that something was wrong. Recognition that something had been wrong for a while. Recognition that I might be the only one who didn't know it. When the waiter brought the bill, Rowan leaned back, stretching again, and said, "Put it all on him, mate. Anniversary boy should treat, right?" Avery laughed. and I felt something inside me crack. Quietly, like ice underfoot. I paid the bill without a word. Not because I agreed, but because arguing in that moment felt pointless, like shouting into a storm. Rowan smirked as the waiter walked away, tapping the table with the handle of his fork, as if he'd won some invisible game I hadn't known we were playing. Avery didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and she didn't care. When we stepped out into the cool night air, Rowan immediately pulled out a cigarette and lit it, blowing smoke into the soft glow of the streetlights. "You guys heading home?" he asked, eyes drifting casually between us. I opened my mouth to answer, but Avery beat me to it. "Actually, Rowan invited me to check out that new bar on Alder Street," she said. "Just for one drink." She turned to me with a smile that felt thin, practiced. "You don't mind, right?" There it was again, "You don't mind, right?" A question disguised as consideration, but really just a confirmation of what she'd already decided. I swallowed the tightness in my throat. "I thought we'd planned to spend tonight together." She blinked at me, almost confused that I'd said anything at all. "We did. This is still spending time together." She gestured between herself and Rowan, as if that made sense. "We'll only be out for a little bit." Rowan shrugged like it didn't matter either way. But something in his expression, a flicker of satisfaction, told me he knew exactly what he was doing. I felt myself slowly stepping out of their frame, like I'd been pushed to the edges of my own anniversary. "All right," I said quietly. "One drink." But I didn't mean with me. Even she knew that. Rowan flicked away his cigarette, crushed it under his heel, and slung an arm around Avery's shoulders as casually as someone tossing on a jacket. She didn't lean into him, but she didn't move away either. And maybe that was worse. We walked in silence toward the bar. I trailed beside them, then behind them, watching the two of them laugh about a shared memory from college. A memory I'd never heard about, despite hearing everything about her life. Or so I'd thought. Inside the bar, the music pulsed low and warm. Rowan ordered himself another expensive drink, something with bourbon and a complicated name, and got Avery her favorite without asking her what she wanted. He knew. He knew in a way someone only learns through long, intimate observation. I sat beside them, a ghost at my own celebration. "So, Cal," Rowan said, turning toward me with a smirk, "what did you get Avery for your anniversary?" I hesitated. "I planned a weekend trip, somewhere quiet." She told me not to book it. Avery waved dismissively. "Yeah, because it's not a good time. Work is insane, and traveling right now just feels stressful." "Stressful," Rowan repeated, raising a brow at her with an amused smile. "But dinner and drinks aren't?" Avery nudged him. "Stop." But she was laughing. With him. Always with him. Then Rowan said something I'll never forget. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest, too honest. "You know, Avies, you should date someone who gets you," he said, swirling his drink. "Someone who fits your rhythm." She froze for a second. It was small, barely noticeable, but I saw it. A moment of realization, or recognition, something she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge before. Then, "Rowan," he smirked. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Not everyone, I thought. Just you. And maybe her. I stood up before I realized I was moving. The words came out calm, steady, more steady than I felt. "I'm heading home." Avery looked up at me. "Cal, wait." "No," I said softly. "You two enjoy your night. It's clearly what you want." Rowan watched me with a hint of triumph. Not loud, but unmistakable. Avery reached for my hand, but stopped halfway, as if unsure what touching me would even mean anymore. "Callum," she whispered. "It's not what it looks like." I gave a small, tired smile. "It's exactly what it looks like. You just haven't admitted it yet." And with that, I walked out of the bar. The cool air hit me like clarity, sharp, painful, sobering. Every step home felt like accepting something I should have seen sooner. I'd been holding on to a version of us that existed only in my mind. When I reached my apartment, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the empty space beside me. The quiet wasn't cruel. It wasn't cold. It was honest, the first honest thing I'd felt all night. Avery texted later. I'm sorry. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. We can talk tomorrow. But tonight showed both of us something we shouldn't ignore. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally she wrote, I don't know what I want anymore. I exhaled slowly. I wrote back. I want someone who chooses me without hesitation. It wasn't anger. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't punishment. It was clarity. The kind that arrives when you stop trying to hold onto someone who's already leaning toward someone else. And for the first time that night, I felt the weight lift. Not because I'd lost her, but because I'd finally stopped losing myself.